once again for and I'm really delighted and honoured to have Hye on stage with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi,
I
so
know
happy to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a great session. I'm really looking forward to your feedback, and I know the guys are looking forward to. Well, a lot of them already met you before, I gather, but for those that haven't as well, it'd be a really good opportunity for them as well. So we're gonna, without further ado, roll on our first artist of the day, and that is none other than Hye Jung. Hye Jung is in Germany right now. Hye Jung, how you doing?
Hi, good, thank you. How are
Hi,
you doing,
Chen.
guys? Hi.
Do you want to just maybe say a little bit about yourself and what you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
performing for people watching at home?
Sure. My name is Yuchen, and I'm from Taiwan. And I just finished my contact examen, the highest performance degree, last November. I'm now still living in Germany. Yep, and teaching in the music school.
Great.
And what are you going to be playing?
Yep. So today I will play for Jihei and Shakong from Bach. Yeah, I think I don't need to introduce the piece more. Yeah.
All right. Shall we hear some Bach?
Yeah, looking forward to it. Let's do
All
it.
right.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you very
amazing.
much.
Sorry, my internet was in and out, but luckily I heard your entire thing pre-recorded. So
Yeah.
I was so happy that I did my homework. Yeah, Yuchen, like I think this piece is epic, right? It's so
Yes.
grand and emotional journey through the whole entire piece. I just wanted to ask a few questions before we can start. So
Yeah.
why are you playing this piece?
Because I just like it, really. I mean, that's, I think, really the one only reason that I play it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think somehow it also, but I mean, of course, we don't have really like long notes on the marimba, but I still think we can make it really musical.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a question that we need to ask ourselves when we are either choosing the piece, or sometimes, you don't get to choose the pieces, right? Sometimes your teachers might give you pieces,
Yes.
assignment, or sometimes when you are professional, they will give you certain pieces to perform. But when you do have opportunity to choose a piece, I think it's a good thing to think about, like, we all love Chacon, we all love uh, Bach, but it's not really written for us.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not saying that it's a bad or good thing, but just thinking about, I chose this piece for maybe for this reason, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, I think that will actually help us to navigate what you're trying to say with a piece.
Yes.
For me, a lot of times, whether it's Bach or new commission pieces or pieces that it's more established pieces that we have, it's good to think about, like, why do I want to play this piece? You like it, but why you like it? You
Uh-huh.
know, I think those are important questions for us to maybe figure out today.
Yes. Yes.
Like, is that because Bach didn't write a piece for us? Like, yeah, if we knew the marimba, maybe he would write a piece this epic.
Yeah. I
I
think so.
hope.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. And you play with such a conviction and passionate way that I think a lot of parts in the piece it's very successful.
Thank you.
But so I think you can play from beginning to the end nicely. So comments that I can give you, the feedbacks, it's going to be more, I think, about how you approach this epic, revolutionary piece that we all know. How
Yeah.
can we make this work on the instruments you and I both love so much, right?
Yes. Yes. I think so.
Right? Like, it's because we are taking the piece of music that's written for some other instruments, and I'm not saying that that's bad, because Bach himself did a lot of transcribing,
Yes.
in his lifetime. And this piece gets performed on violin and piano or many different combination of instruments. So I think it's good to kind of think about, I chose this piece, but what do you like about this? If this piece has done many times, many different ways, or marimba players love playing this. So if you decide to play this piece, what's something that you're trying to say to me? What are you trying to say to people, right? You don't
Yes.
have to answer that,
Yeah.
but think about that when you're now, going back working on this piece. It's not going to be, oh, you missed that note, you missed that note. I think you all know, right? Like,
Yes.
we work on that, but I think we need to kind of think about, okay, what's my approach to this piece? If I were perform this piece in front of not just the percussionists, but for just regular audience member who don't know the marimba, or maybe they might even not know that it's not written for marimba.
Yes. Yes.
It's first time hearing Chacon. So that's the first thing. Like, let's think about a little bit, what you're trying to do with this piece. And I think that leads us to next question. Like, okay, I ask this question for myself when I play Bach or marimba. What are some things that our instrument is good at? And what are some things that our instruments are not good at? As you mentioned, what did you
Yes.
mention, Yuchen? What did you say earlier?
I think we don't have low notes. I think that's we kind of like lack of.
Yeah.
And for our advantage, I think it's we can play it. I mean, in a certain way, like really fast and clear. I think yes.
Yeah. So I think you need to have a list of things we are good at
Yes.
and list of things we are not good at. I'm not saying that, this will be bad because you don't play string instruments, but maybe we can like sort of mix and match. Oh, we don't have sustained long notes naturally.
Yes.
What are the things that you can help with? Yeah. What can you do as a player to think about things different ways than, you know what, this is the tempo I like, I'm going to stick with it. No, maybe the tempo should be a little bit lost,
Yeah.
or maybe the touch should be different. Maybe your stroke can be developed different ways. Maybe your phrasing should be different, So I think thinking about like, okay, like you're taking this music that's not written for us and transforming into pieces of ours, like, yeah, definitely I would think about things we're good at, things we're
Yes.
not good at as a this instrument,
Yeah.
So
Correct.
let's talk about the tempo,
Yeah.
the very beginning tempo. Yeah, I think it's a tricky thing because you want to have this sort of persona, like playing this opening theme, like you want people to hear certain way. So what are some of the adjectives you can give it to me at very beginning of the theme? Just describe the beginning musical characters or colors. What are you thinking about, Yuchen?
For me, it's more like a dark and deep sadness and like a statement. Yep. And yeah, like you said, I think the tempo I choose is good for the emotion that I want, but it's maybe not good for marimba because it's apparently like too slow and our long notes could not sustain so long. I mean, even I try to sing like in my head like loudly or try to make it really connected, but I think the sound disappear. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not saying your tempo is too slow,
Yeah.
but it's interesting because you just watch your own video, and I think that's really, for me, when I'm making the sound, that I'm the person who's like initiating this art form versus somebody who's watching in the audience member. It's actually quite different,
Yeah.
So nowadays we have these recording devices. You can kind of go back and forth, which I tell my students all the time, but it's really hard to do. Like for me, it's hard to watch myself playing.
Yes.
It's so clear,
Yeah.
So but I think that it's a kind of interesting thing that we have to juggle. And as I mentioned, people play on violin, but also there is a piano version. Have
Yes.
you heard those recordings?
Yes.
I'm just
The
curious. Yeah.
piano version is from the Busoni, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he add just like super many notes and chords differently and try to make it more in an epic way, I would say, like like all the octaves and
Yeah.
arpeggios, something like this. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that tells me, listening to different version, it's like, wow, that person made it work for their instruments. I'm not saying that you should add bunch of notes, but realizing that they have more than, it's not just four chords, or like you don't have to roll those four chords. Like they got 10 fingers and many more
Yes.
keyboards, right, of control. So they just made it work that each variations that fits into that form. So I think you need to do, maybe not that you need to take the notes from the piano version, but what we can learn from it, what I think that great lesson can be listening to different, and you need to listen to different people playing different versions, is that, they all made it to work. Like even you play, you listen to 5 different recordings of violinists
Yes.
perform. You're gonna hear 5 different tempos at the beginning.
Yes. Yes.
Or how they play that major section, like how they will portray that being tender and special can be very, very different from person to person. So
Yes.
listening to those different kinds of recording isn't necessarily like, oh, I should do that, like copycat, like, oh, I like that. That comes later, but like kind of asking yourself question like, why did this person do this?
Mhm.
What's the reason? Is it working?
Yep.
And I think that sort of similar way of thinking or questioning for marimba could lead like different ways to beautify, different ways to support what you're trying to do.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I think I asked a question about just broad term of like why you're playing this piece to researching recordings. But let's get more specific. Those are like the big thing. So
Yep.
very opening, you can you play very beautifully. Like you have the characters of the deep sorrow. There's so much maybe anger, sadness, and you're trying to put in this
Yes.
into chords. But at the same time, like I wonder, since we are playing percussive instruments, we need to be careful with the voicing.
Yep.
Even when you hear the piano version, there are like 8-note chords, or many different notes at the same time. They're very careful, the ones that are done well, of voicing what we're supposed to hear, what we're supposed to follow. It's not just like block, 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 right?
Yep.
I think that will also help us to hear things much more linear way than this vertical of blocks of chords, which I think you're trying to do. But I think what we can do is when you play 3-note chords or 4-note chords, how can we balance those notes? Because I think you're doing a little bit naturally, like there's a lot of good intuition going on, but I think you can actually do even more, exaggerate those, voicing of those chords. Maybe not all the 4 notes should be even. You should, if you're playing, 4-note chords, you shouldn't be 25, 25, 25, 25. Sometimes bass note is more important. It's leading the way, or sometimes the top note has the melody line. So you kind of trying to bring the top voice out, right? Like, so I think we can, especially when you have those blocks of chords but on top there is a melody line.
Yes.
Be, exaggerate, like maybe 10%, and 70%. That'll be really difficult. And that's probably not what we're gonna do at the end to perform, but it'll be really cool experiment to hear what you're trying to hear and hoping that people will hear what you intend to bring out.
So
right? Maybe.
just trying to make it exaggerate and just like teach yourself like, which voice is more important, right?
Yeah, because later on you will balance it out. You don't be a 70%, you don't be a 90%. Those chords are important as well, the harmonics sort of establishing at the beginning. But even later on, like when we have different, for example, we're going to arpeggio section.
Yes.
Right? Like a lot of times in the middle of that arpeggio section, towards at the end, the climax, like a lot of the bass note is like sort of moving, I don't think you need to play all even. It gets too percussive, like if you hear the pianist or the violinist doing it, like I can use different articulation for the fast notes and making sure that some of the notes maybe ring more.
Yes.
Right? Like, so that's what I mean, like finding even though as busy as that section can get, even the climax of the whole piece,
Yeah.
maybe there's a way to make yourself easier to play that particular section. I think it'll be easier, first of all, and second of all, like maybe bring out the important prioritizing. Okay, what are you trying to do? Like, is it just fast, or should I still support bass lines? Should I still bring out the harmony progressions?
Yes. Totally.
Right. So I think the voicing can be tricky in this piece because when we're trying to play blocks of chords, two notes together, but also bring out the inner notes or outside notes, balancing that could be challenging. But I think it's more for like you trying to bring out something towards like rather than just playing all even.
Yeah.
Right. So let's add voicing to one of our things to consider. And I mentioned briefly about articulations, the things that actually I think the percussion is as a being, you mentioned like being advantage of us is like we can actually be very articulate, right?
Yeah. Yes. Like
But
clear.
right. So maybe use that advantage and may also, okay, now I can do this, but what are some things that we are not good at? Maybe bring out the slur, bring out different kinds of articulation, right? Like articulation is being clear. Okay, we got that. So maybe you can do a lot less work of being clear
Yeah.
when we are trying to do this da 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 dee da dee dee da da dee da da dee da da dee da. How you will bring different kinds of groups of notes or slurs, because that's something that I feel like I struggle with,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like no matter how I try hard, they sound, we are programmed as a percussionist, like it kind of comes as even da 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 da. But maybe I'm trying to bring out maybe 8-note groups or 4 notes or sometimes 16 notes, right? Or sometimes first 2 notes are slur.
Yeah.
So the bowing makes it easy, like, or the articulation. I think actually, like, I thought for longest time, being string players is so easy for them to do. But actually, they also battle. That's the one thing that they really consider and try different bowing, try different articulation, try different weights, how much pressure. So I think that's something that talking to string players, like of my, I was like, oh, you guys got this. It's so easy for it. They're like, no. Like it's it's a question for us too. So I will also consider playing for different instrumentalists that you have at school.
Yeah.
So we have Tim just tells me we have 5 minutes. So one thing, very last thing that I will give you.
Yeah.
Chen, like you play the note. There are a lot of notes so beautifully. I think it's clear each variation what you're trying to bring it up. But one thing that you can really add as you are arranging, you are making this transcription to your instrument, right?
Yes.
Maybe be more like instead of like notes are here, I'm just playing this. Maybe you can be thinking of like you are orchestrating the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
like so done. Maybe different instruments are playing in your head, right? Like cellists are playing, and then the woodwinds are coming down. So I think those things will help you to not only group them in different ways, but like thinking about different colors.
Yes.
Right? Like your intention, like, oh, if I were putting this to many different instruments, what are some things that you are thinking of?
Yep.
And see how you can bring those particular instruments beautiful colors into your playing. You know, like you're just gathering, like, oh, I thinking bass and cellos do this well, and I think the woodwinds do this well, or the trumpet or brass needs to come in and be backing up the whole climax, whatever that is, you know. Thinking more of adding to that, or organ, you can add organ to it, like, you know. Yeah, exactly. Like holding that bass note, there's a pedal tone towards the at the end. Maybe some of the repetitive notes shouldn't be as coming out. Like it should be more drone like. Right? Like how you play that will be totally different, right? So I would just think about more of those terms. Like if you can do all the things that we talked about. And last thing I think you can do is like in your music, like, oh, I think here, high strings come in and low strings come in here. You know, I think it'll be fun experiment, and that way you don't get bored to either. Like you're just playing I already know the notes, so let me just go through it. Okay, I'm waiting for the next section. Oh, how can you make this section special? Is thinking about some of different sound into that.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Thank you very much.
All right.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. We're going to go to Texas now. Now I know you know Megan already. Oh, I've put the wrong person off. There we go. It's my first mistake of the night. Sorry. So, Megan, perhaps you could fill us in on what you're going to be showcasing.
So I'm going to be playing Spiel by Andy Akiho. So I already got to play a different Andy Akiho piece for you, and you helped me a lot. So this is the solo from the 7 Pillars for Glockenspiel and everything. And basically, I'm recording. I'm kind of at the halfway point. I played this on a recital, and I'm hoping to play this. I'm about to do like a big audio recording of it, like my first big fancy thing. So I was hoping to get some feedback from this. This was like a one take. I had the hall for a little bit and just went and did it. So any feedback would be awesome on where to go from here, I guess.
Great. I'm so happy that you're playing in this piece and looking forward to hearing it. Awesome. Wow. What a
Thank
piece.
you. Yeah.
It's so fun. Are you having fun with it?
It's been so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and this piece sort of challenges you to step up into the instrument. Like it's Glockenspiel, it's normally a lot of times used as orchestral instrument, and he's sort of pushing this soloistic, virtuosic, crazy fireworks, right? Like, I think that's like incredible. So, and I think you're doing a really good job of standing up to that. Like, okay, like I'm gonna play this like crazy solo on Glockenspiel, the bells, right? Like, I think there's something, yeah, crazy about it, and all the like extended techniques, and it is a lot. Like when you hear, I mean, this is serving a small part of much bigger sort of piece that's like 80 minutes of work, right? Like, but I think it's incredible that it can actually work as a standing work. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
all the
totally.
solos, right? Like especially this one, or marimba one is also great, the vibraphone one, and also the multi. Like if students can program this in their recital, like this is actually perfect. It's intense, and but it's not 80 long of music, so yeah, I think you're doing a really good job, playing Glockenspiel that is virtuosic. That we
Thank
don't have that kind of music on Glockenspiel, and it's incredible to see you just get up there and shred the whole thing. um, so yeah, I think that the whole attitude, like playing Andy's music, like okay, like I'm going to play something crazy and something really challenging, like not just choppy, like it is that, the whole ending is very choppy. But also I think musically it's a challenge. Like if you're playing, how long is this? Like 6 or 7 minutes? It's just like, whoa,
Yeah.
like I'm like, like as an audience member, like kind of hits you. So, our job as a player is to sort of create musical experience so that people can understand what's cool about the piece, right? So there are so many things that is cool about it. They're so dense. But I think we can actually maybe help them understand the things that you appreciate about, you want to communicate about. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it can be like at the end, like how cool that is. So I think that, and this music is virtuosic, it's crazy. You should see Andy play like, on tapping on his like legs. Like he can actually do all this crazy rhythm. That's what's crazy about. Like he understands, he digests, and that's the only way to write down is like 7 against 4 in the 6/8 measure is like the perfect for him to kind of give you that. So yeah, I think we need to really make sure that all this little thing, the details comes out when we're working on this. So if I coming back like to the whole, let's zoom out. Like, okay, what are the things that you're trying to say? Like it's virtuosic and it's got so many notes, and in a way it's repetitive. Like right, those grooves. Da, 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 da. So how can how can you trying to tell us when you play 11th time of the same sort of the figure, the cell, it is worth of like listening, right? Like
Yeah.
like it draws me, like it creates attention, or sometimes it can be the other way. But I think we need to make sure, we need to be clear what the intention behind of those 17 times of this one cell, and then gets lead us to something like there's reason, right? Like why it's sort of there. So I wonder if we can get into those understanding behind all those little things. So let's get
Yeah.
into the piece. Yeah. So even at the very beginning, when you play those dotted eighth notes, bum 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 bum, da 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 da, right? Like I think that is like sort of shocking as a listener. Like it kind of goes bum bum, and then we have this like sort of
Yeah.
stillness to it. So if even though you play so even, if you play completely even, I think it will naturally die away.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know. You know, like that's how I feel. So you kind of need to make sure to have that tension going into the last note to not
Gotcha.
lose that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like to really deliver that last note and then drop it. Does it make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Those are the little things that I'm looking for. I don't know. What do you think? What are some of the things that you found challenging in this piece?
That was definitely one of them, was like deciding on each of those ones. I actually, for the first one, I think like I definitely will try to keep it held out for a little bit longer. But on some of the ones later, I actually kind of like it to have a little bit of an echo sound, just because it's like the 17th time. So,
Mhm.
and if it's kind of leaning towards a different section sometimes, because the sections are so different from each other.
Yeah.
So I guess I try to differentiate between each of the different sounds the most. But it
Yeah.
definitely, that's been the biggest challenge, is that, and then making the end still engaging to the
Yeah.
listener too.
I think that's like really big question. Like it's a lot if you
Yeah,
give
it's a lot.
everything from the beginning to hold that.
Yeah.
And then at the end there's a huge explosion.
Mhm.
And by the time we kind of lose the audience. So how can we like not lose the tension and also pace ourselves, you know, because you also get tired. I feel like I can hear Megan, you know, like, oh, struggle. It's not because of your chops, but because it's like so much sound all the
Yeah,
time.
no,
It has
totally.
nothing to do with your hands, you know. It's just that it's just been going on too long, you know.
Mhm.
So, yeah, since you mentioned each section, so I wonder, even when we get to the letter A,
Mhm.
right? Like we finally get there. One of the things that I think you can do with that silence, I don't know. What do you think about those silence?
They're definitely, I always feel like they should go on for longer than they're written in the score. Like all of the different silences. Also, I'm gonna have to pull up my score really quick because I think I know what
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
is. But
Yeah,
um, oh yeah. So that part, I don't know. I went back and forth, and I've done it a couple different ways to where I do kind of just let it hang out until I feel like I'm ready to start the next one. But I've actually been enjoying lately, kind of feeling it more in time. Like I did there, I kind of felt it almost like a groove at that part, because when it comes back in later, it is like grand pause kind of thing. But in this recording specifically, I really liked kind of feeling the time between them.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of them.
yeah, right. And then like, you know, they're all really different, right? So
Yes.
I think that, you know, later on it gets like really long too. But here, like it's the first one and it kind of keeps changing and kind of playing and they're all little. So I wonder if you can be like, when the very first one comes in, it's very shocking. I mean, I don't know about you. When Terry,
Yeah.
I heard this piece for the first time at the pacing, right? That's their premiere. Yeah, I was there and listening. I was like, is it meant to stop? You know, like did he like, you know, like you, and but of course the lighting sort of helps understand the piece. But it was just like it's been going a lot of sound, a lot of brightness, and also all of a sudden it sort of stops. And then we sort of understand, oh, okay, it's a piece, it's a section, it's a sort of, the gesture is part of it, silence is part of it. So how can we like play that? So I think you can actually be more, first one can be shocking, but like the whole section of this A can be maybe more playful.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's almost like, you
Yeah.
know, oh, never mind. Oh, it's still a different. Like it's actually playing games with our expectation, our ears. Like I want this to be the same. I want this to, you know, do the certain way, but it's just keep changing and it keeps making me feel uncomfortable. That, you know, expectation meets the, you know, he's breaking that rule. So like, ooh, you know, so I wonder you can like sort of help us with that. Um, and I don't know. Like, did that Glock that you're going to play? Like, it's a more logistical question. Like, did they have pedal?
No,
Oh,
it
okay.
doesn't. We don't. I think the only pedal clock that I would be able to record on, it has like a border around it, and so I like that one because I can play on the edges of all the bars, and I
Yeah.
don't have to worry
Okay.
about hitting anything else. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I
the
don't
only
know.
problem.
Yeah, I just curious. Like, it'll be so
Yeah.
cool. Like, you can just like zip, and then later on, like,
Yeah.
the resonance can be part of it. But yeah, I was thinking like, how can you shock me more? It's like
Yeah.
maybe for the audio recording thing, if you can get it to the glockenspiel for the same tuning, you can do that part with the pedal one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or you
No,
can
I
have a
could
lot of
totally try
friends
that.
damping it.
Yeah,
You can
totally.
have an extra damper. But yeah, the whole thing I think can be like a little bit more of playfulness in this section. You know.
Yeah.
What do you think about the next section, the section B?
Um,
That's
B.
when you. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that section. I think that's my favorite section of the whole piece because
Me
it
too.
brings back, I guess, yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. I guess it's more related to like the rest of the seven pillars. Like it makes more sense in context when you see the stick on stick thing in all of the movements, and then it comes back in this one. It's like, oh my gosh, it's the same thing. But I like that it kind of gives the listener's ears a break a little bit. And the only thing that I would change about the way I did this recording is I think I played all of the notes on the edge like way too loud. Because I think this should be like the more chill section, I guess.
I wonder even the like stick to stick, like that stick to stick sound, like you can maybe balance the rest of the sound into that. Right now, like
Yeah.
it's hard to hear your stick sound because like actually like the rest of the actual regular playing, it's like so sticks out. I mean, it's accented, but like I actually what's cool about it, as you said, like this is maybe the most sort of chill, and there's and then when you actually go into the pitch material, like sort of wow, there is some sort of line, right? So I think maybe balancing your sound into like I will bring it down so that we can
Totally.
actually hear that, then the other way, like trying to play the stick really loud, like it would never, I think, match that. So try that and see how it is. And then when you actually dum bum 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 bum, like when you actually do play the glockenspiel, with more pitch, right? When we actually hear the pitch, I think you can maybe play them a little differently.
Yeah.
I don't know, like it gives us to lead certain way, maybe shape it in a different way, and then we go back to being like rhythmic, right?
Yeah.
Like so maybe that can be very juxtaposed and be different, right? Like even the quintuplet, dun, ding, dun, 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 right? Like so you can play 5 against 4, but also that's a chance for you to shape those 5 notes. It's not a lot. He doesn't give you a lot. I know, but I think if we can be successful, I think this whole section will be much more interesting rather than okay, here's that and here's that. How can we sort of make this two different material make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Let's What do you think about C? Let us see.
I like C for the same reason, because the part at the end of B, every single one of those A naturals is on the edge, which makes it project so much more. So it's kind of a lot. And then I like C because it's like another extended technique where I feel like that section I think looks the flashiest out of the whole piece. Just how the sticks are always changing directions like the whole time.
Yeah.
But it really shouldn't be as dynamically loud. So I did really like that part of it, but it does feel kind of repetitive sometimes. So I've tried to like line out the meters of each bar to make it a little more interesting. Just like every time there's either a 4 or a 3 or a 5 to try to line that up before the next section. But yeah, that's how I thought about it.
No, I think those are good. One thing I will two things. like when we actually hear like, yeah, like it's so virtuosic. One thing that I would love to hear, that gliss being like so repetitive, but being really exact, rather than just being
Yeah.
like the cleanness, like that creates so much tension. We're doing it over and over again, once again, like, and then when you change it, break from that, like it's sort of the break, So
Yeah.
I will just make sure that all of your gliss are a little bit more consistent. Right now
Totally.
it just seems like maybe just sometimes goes further, sometimes, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
just measure those a little bit more. And
for sure.
the second thing, number two in this section, yeah, it's a highly exciting moment, right? Like we keep building and crescendo. I think it builds up too quickly for me.
Yeah.
So we're going to the next section, like the letter D, but I think we actually do too much of we also, if I were playing your part, I would rush like a crazy, like, and I think, is so not able to rush, but also doing like steady crescendo. It's really hard. That I think that really creates like this, uh, like resilient, like, the tension, like the right, like you want to go forward, but like you want to like sort of take off, but you're trying to get really far, so you're trying to do it. You know what I mean? Like, so I think you need to maybe go back and see, it takes about like, I don't know, like 20 measure to get to 410. But I feel like we, by like, before 10th measure, like we're already for. It's not
Yeah,
because of
totally.
you. I think it's because of the instrument too. Like,
Oh, I've
talking
never
about
thought of it
Chacon,
that way. Yeah.
right? Like talking about Chacon, like, yeah, we need to really get to know our instruments, what's good at, what's not good at. Things we're good at with a glockenspiel, like and you're playing with a timbale stick. So, I think we need to really be careful not to give so much so early. Like
Yeah,
I think
totally.
a lot of times in this piece, I'm running into that issue. Like Megan, like it's bright and you have sticks in your hand, you know, and I think that what he's trying to do is creating that tension, like like repetition kind of gives that sort of the next one, like going into the step, like, rather than just really easy to crescendo,
Yeah.
like we need to have that uh sort of blocking something so that it's not, you know, so easily like, oh, I'm just giving it away right now, taking off, it's 20 measures of not so much of bump. So when you're trying to get there, like, I have a plan. I'm gonna get there.
Yeah.
Just wait. You know what I mean? Like, and you're gonna have all of us like, oh. And then finally when you get to forte and then going into the D, like that should be pretty easy. So yeah, I think your D will be much more successful if you just hold yourself a little bit with that list. At the very beginning of that, like I know it's fun.
Yeah. No, yeah. But
But let's
totally, yeah.
let's yeah, like let's see like where you're heading and see like if we can get there. Um yeah, so what do you think about the whole 11-second thing?
Um, yeah, I'm definitely using that as a little bit of a reset point for myself, just of like, okay, the first half's over. I try not to show that in my face as much because it's nice to like hold out the tension for the audience
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like what, because the first time I heard it was the video that was put out, and I remember
Yeah.
thinking like, oh, it's over, and then it's not over. Yeah, that
Right,
kind of
right.
thing. So I think if I try not to relax too much because then it'll everyone will think it's over. But for myself, that's kind of where I get into,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like the rest of the piece is the most melodic part, I guess, or it's the most tonal. So I try to
Yeah.
kind of shift my own brain into
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that frame, but I know that it's really hard for an audience member who's never heard the piece before to know, I guess, that switch is coming. So I've been having difficulty, and I've been trying with different dynamics and stuff, but I
Mm-hmm.
still don't feel like I've totally figured out how to make the next section sound different from the beginning, because no
Oh, the
one's really
section
listening for it at that point, I
section
guess.
E, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but right before like with those so the silence thing, I wonder if you can just like not move for the very first one.
Yeah.
You're right, like it sort of disintegrates into that uh uh the next section, which is most melodic and linear part of the whole piece. But like maybe like like we are ready to clap, but like when the players hold their bows up, we are waiting for them to do this to clap, right?
Yeah.
So like I want you to like maybe not show that. You're showing a little bit like you're doing,
Yeah.
and I want to clap, like so
Yeah.
maybe hold that. It's a little bit like confusing message. I think like as much as we are as a percussionist and performer, like our body language sort of determines, because if they never heard that piece before, like they're gonna
Right.
relax with you, So
Yeah.
the maybe the very first one like shouldn't be like frozen, like like this screen freezing, like is this done? Like
Yeah.
stay there, like just like hold that uncomfortable amount of time before you move on.
Yeah.
And then the next one little less, and the next one less, and dynamic gets smaller. Okay, this is a transition. But very first one, the very long one, the very awkward one, just try to, I guess, own the awkwardness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if we just like was like recording thing, like yeah, I think you should be like not blinking your eyes even.
Yeah.
Like how
Yeah.
can you like stare at your instrument so loud that everybody's like, is this done yet? Candy wrapping, they should all stop at this point. Um, so yeah, getting into E, like I thought it was successful. So like maybe little bit by little bit, your body language can change. Those silence can transition from this to the next section. I thought actually that part was successful.
Okay.
Just
Thank you.
very
That's good. That-
yeah, no, there. I mean, it's really hard. Like, and you need to definitely also relax. But just maybe the very first one, the 11-second one,
yeah.
that's a long time. It's like over. It's like over beyond the awkwardness. There's awkwardness, and he is giving you +5 seconds,
Yeah.
right? Like, so it's like people are squirming, and then you're moving on. Okay, so yeah, like so the letter E, that section, I think I will find a way to, hum the line. Like I hear it, but I think once again, like with um being glockenspiel, like it kind of brings up too quickly, too soon.
Yeah.
So that's what's gonna be hard. Like, how can I play glockenspiel so soft?
Yeah.
With timbale sticks, right? With the sticks, right? Like
Definitely.
it's not like a tiny mallet or the tip of your like pencil. Like I think that is going to be push yourself into that limit. Like this is like the most beautiful section. I know there's a lot of different kinds of rhythms and different notes, but try to bring those notes and follow that as much as you can. I think that's if you're being patient, when we get to F, we all know it's coda.
Yeah.
Like we got to the end, like let's celebrate, let's go. But even then, like he gives you like so much more back and forth, like even G, letter G, like getting into the total like drop off. Like
Yeah.
I want you to actually play that into your ears, not just, oh, I'm playing soft, my hands are doing pianissimo. Like no, judge by your ears what you hear. Like is
Yeah.
this soft enough? Because probably your hands are doing piano, but
Yeah.
glockenspiel is
No, definitely.
dynamically probably like forte.
I've
Like
Yeah, I've never noticed like at that point my ears are. I mean, I always wear earplugs when I play this piece, but by the time I get there, like my ears are definitely burned out. So
yeah,
I've never thought to like make sure that every accent doesn't like kind of constructively interfere with each other and get louder just because the instrument's ringing more rather than me playing it louder, I guess.
like the
So
letter
that's super
G. That's
helpful.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it's a like, he's kind of pulling you back so that we can give more towards at the end.
Yeah.
The H is like highlight. Same thing. H, the gliss. I would like you to like sort of know how far each hand go and where you stop.
Yeah.
It just goes. Like it's great, but like I will like for me, knowing Andy, he likes when you fold the paper, he wants to see the even line.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the measurement is super important. Otherwise, he will not give you those end
That's
pitches.
true.
So like those little details, I think. Then going back to that, your rhythm grooves, but I think those doing more of those work and seeing, okay, what's important here, what's the priority here, I think will give us totally different kinds of listening. There are a lot of beautiful sections. Go even further down with that, and then when there are like celebratory and sparkles and fireworks, even then like don't go, like there are few things that needs to be a little bit in line with that
Yeah,
to
totally.
create to not lose the tension. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
thank
Great
you.
job. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Nice one.
Mhm.
Okay, great. We're going to stay in Texas now. We're going to go to Graham. Hey, buddy.
Hello. How are you
Hi,
doing?
Graham.
Yeah, good, thank you. So I've just looked at my crib sheet. I see this is a original collaboration. So perhaps you could enlighten us a little bit.
Might need a little bit of explanation, I suppose.
Sure.
Jihei, did you look at this before? And the
Mhm.
score and all? Okay. So to like sum it up for everyone else, this is it's supposed to be a multimedia project between artists across disciplines at UNT's College of Music and College of Visual Arts and Design. And this was kind of the end product of this class. And the goal of this piece was we took a visual designer, a composer, like an electronic composer, and then myself, and kind of created this story for a percussionist. And then there's audio track going on that's like spatialized, and there's a bunch of screens of video, and all of it's sort of interactive. So as I'm playing, the the composer is actually kind of mixing live electronics and like adding effects to my playing and that sort of thing. And then the visual element is also like manipulated. There's sort of like cables and stuff connected to some of the instruments and different people. And so it was this big like production, and this was like 10 minutes part of a final class project that was actually a lot longer. But I thought this was interesting because it was really tricky to do, because we kept talking about all these experimental ideas and things like that, and then it was like, oh, I have to play some percussion too along with it. So I'm one thing that I've learned from working with you before, Jihei, is how big you are on commissioning and like new projects and things like that. So that's why I wanted to bring this project in, is just because it was kind of a foray into working with people of different disciplines. And I was curious, what experience you had and like thoughts, because it was kind of just jumping in the ocean and figuring out what works, and we had to like produce something at the end of the semester. And so I think it was cool what turned out, but there's definitely lots of things where, especially now that I have some distance from the project, that I would go back and I'm like, oh, that's kind of a confusing thing I did there, or I wish I prepared this more or whatever. But in the space of the moment, it just felt like very creative and kind of open, and who knows what would happen the next time we met, and that sort of thing. So
Awesome.
the piece.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the like structure of the piece is actually supposed to represent the universe. So we took like the timeline from the Big Bang to the death of the universe, and we use like those time stamp markings to construct the structure of the piece. So that's kind of where some of the events come from in the piece. But we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yay! Sorry, I was muted. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, what a cool project. I mean, this is something that, you know, I would love to do now, Graham. Like, but it would take so much work to make this happen. Just the logistical issue, finding the people, finding the friends, and people who are interested in doing. But where you are now, through this class, right? Like, I think this is something that you can really take advantage of. Just
Yeah.
I wanted to start with that. You know, you're at a school, amazing institution where, you know, there are so many different people interested in doing other things, and they're whether it's a visual artist or the sound designer, um, or yourself or composer, like they're all there, like right, like so. I just wanted to mention how cool this is. This is
Thanks.
super
Yeah.
cool. I'm
It
so
felt super
jealous and happy
special.
for you.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was when we started creating and stuff, we didn't know like what would happen. But then by the end, we are like, oh man, this is, where else does this happen? This is like really lucky to be able to do this and have the like technology available and that sort of thing. So we tried
Yeah.
to take advantage of as much of that as we could.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just have a few a lot of questions, right? Like, so it seems like you are given the timeline. You all share this timeline, important, like the process of the universe. But how so what was sort of pre-recorded? Well, I guess the digital visual arts, right?
Um, things that were like static the whole way through and pre-recorded was the track. There was a static track that went the whole way through, and then it was actually used a lot of like samples from what I ended up playing live, and then along with that there was also the live element of like microphones on like the water bowl and the crotales and stuff like that. So the
Right.
like digital audio you're hearing is probably about 70% like pre-recorded track and 30% like amplified and processed me, like
Mm-hmm.
live me. And then
Mm-hmm.
the visual is the two like outer screens. The visual was kind of divided into three screens on this video, and the two outer screens were actually fixed the whole way through. But the middle screen kind of went back and forth between fixed and like live manipulated. What it's kind of difficult to see in the video, but there's actually two wires going into the bowl of water that I'm kind of playing with. And when my skin touches the water, like the electricity from my body goes into this like through the wires into a computer program to manipulate the like visuals
That is
expanding
cool.
and condensing. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like when everyone walked up in the circle around me, they were
Mm-hmm.
actually like all connected electronically and like manipulating that sort of visual element.
Okay. Yeah, that's a question that I had. Like, how much is like, who is doing live? You know what I mean? Like, who's in
Uh-huh.
more interactive and
Especially like in the video when it's kind of dark and you can't really see what's going on, it's like kind of confusing what's actually, happening or what's just like pre-recorded.
yeah, I mean, you guys did this for like a class, right? Like, there was deadline, so you made this happen and performed it. But you know, going forward, like I will take advantage of this and seeing, you know, what you learn from it, what you like about it, and making. I mean, you have this cool video, but it's nothing like being there, right? Like I bet that being there
Uh-huh.
was pretty amazing, spectacular,
Yeah.
like
It felt
sort of
like
experience.
I remember you like loved the O'Halloran piece with the like reverb drenched marimba. And when I
Hmm.
was playing this, I was like, oh, maybe this is because you touch like a crotale or like something normal, and then you hear all these things go on around you, the like extra sound
Hmm.
effects and stuff. And that's kind of what it was like in the room with especially like spatialized sound and that sort of thing. But I mean, there's definitely different like of the tools and the people. Like I've started trying to do more projects with them over the summer and that sort of thing, so we can kind of build from this and not just have it be a one-off thing that we did but never did anything further with.
Yeah, I mean, this is so cool. Like if it's like a more like a instrument installation of like somewhere like built in like a museum kind of art, right? Like so,
Uh-huh.
I would like talk to your, you know, there has to be a museum in Denton or a school, right?
Yeah, there's actually, well, there's one in Dallas called Dallas Contemporary, which does like live installation sort of things. And we were like, oh, we're gonna send them this video and try to set up something down there.
Yeah, I think that'll be the next step so that you have another deadline, like for us, for me, certainly, like probably speaking for like 95% of our artists, like we work with the deadline, when there's deadline, even maybe it's not necessarily lucrative with a finance thing, but like, like you can take this into next project, next step, and as you said, like
hmm
you probably saw, like I didn't see anything that I would do differently, other than like maybe getting a better video of this, good,
Yeah.
right? Like, so that's like, for me, it's like, okay, like who is this for? You know what I mean? Like knowing your audience. Is this for like your regular percussion concert? Or, I mean, yes, that could work, but I feel like it could be bigger than that, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe talk to your friends who are involved in this. It can definitely part of your degree recital, because I know you also write music, Glenn, but I feel like to able to make everybody who are in this project on board and be excited as much as you are, like maybe we need to take this into maybe school level, school of music level, or somewhere like a museum level where you are all excited about and seeing
hmm
if you would do it differently.
hmm
But yeah,
Yeah, that
I'm
was the next step of the project, I guess.
yeah, and then if you do have next project, then you can think about like how you will do it differently.
hmm
So I would be just curious. This is just a question. So you're the one who's like sort of responding to what's going on with the timeline, what's going on, and you trigger things. But I wonder, you can also experiment with them, like maybe the visual artist can be there, like you pre-record your 70%, right? Like,
Mm.
and them doing something live, or like, or the third performance can be like the composer who's electric composer can also do something more integrated. I don't know. That'll be my next
Yeah,
step.
that was, well, it was kind of our workflow. It kind of went, the composer made like the electronic basic track, and then the visual artist kind of like created
Mm,
the parts to like go on top of it.
mhm,
And then during the live performance, you were responding to me. And so I wonder if
mhm.
we kind of like flipped around some of those like relationships, especially with the live performance, where like all of a
Yeah,
sudden they did something that I had to respond to. And I see what you're saying.
yeah. I think that'll be much more, I don't know, interesting, and you'll find the different things. They may not work at all, right? Like you'll find that this is like, for me, for creative like project like this, like you kind of have to assume something may not work out, right? Like, but
We found a
by
lot of
doing
things
that,
that didn't work.
right? Like you found that during the process, like being brave and having courage is like knowing that it may not work out. But my question is like, how can you involve the other parties as much as like more like performing
hmm
stage, right? They can
hmm
be in the back, they don't have to be in the middle, but like I wonder, how can you make it even in terms of
Yeah,
able to control and contribute at the moment. I don't know.
yeah, that makes sense because it's if you definitely could, like, there's so many opportunities. Just the more people you have like doing something, I feel like in the moment to create, especially with
Yeah,
where we were talking about like art gallery style or installation style rather than just like forming style.
yeah, and I just going back to the question, like, who is this for? And I wonder, like, is this? Yeah, no. I'm.
That I know what you mean.
And also, like, you can also think of as like, who is this for? Like, is this for you? Three of you getting together and doing this for once, or does this piece have sustainability, right? Like if it's going to be museum piece, yeah, you can actually play live a few times, but it takes 3 of you to be there. So I'm thinking maybe, if it's going to be art installation, maybe you, Graham, and the sound designer, they get together pre-made, and then lighting person can be the audience, like manipulating on spot. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's like interactive art where audience or people who are walking in a museum will do something and your pre-recording thing would trigger something. I don't know. Are you there?
Yeah, no, now I'm back. Is this?
Oh, cool, cool.
I
You
think I
didn't
heard
hear
most of it,
anything I said? That's probably a good
No,
thing.
I heard most of it.
No,
But,
but like thinking about what this will be when 3 of you are not there.
Yeah,
You
because
know?
that's it. Could even, the sort of like interactivity of it would lend itself to if just like the public museum goers wanted to experiment with the water or the visual or that sort of thing.
Yeah, like nowadays, contemporary music world, like performing at the museum, yeah, it might be tricky with the water, but you can go around. Even the stage, like I was thinking, like looking at the water, like, oh, maybe are they cool with that? But like in terms of like more of like a station where part of the museum is more interactive, and I think that will draw different kinds of audience member walking by and touching the instruments. Is like at the beginning you're doing the bass drum. I thought it was actually, was that triggering the screen? How much was it interactive?
When I was on the bass drum, no, it was just like a live, like I was performing live. The other parts were pre-recorded on that section at the beginning.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like you're doing the bass drum thing and then it was sliding. I couldn't tell.
Well, I tried to make it so that it was, I guess, and that was kind of one of the goals, was we wouldn't like one of the things we wanted to happen was it was kind of ambiguous what part was live triggered, what part like was pre-recorded. We wanted it to seem like an organic thing that flowed through time.
Yeah, no, it was really successful in that way. But yeah, I was just thinking about the next project, like maybe how to involve different parties, be much more on the stage, right? Like they all manipulate something, respond to something. I don't know. When you have all 3 of you together, like you have some, like, I guess, piece of instruction, right? You have a plan, so that's good. Like you have video, you can refer to that, but seeing how you can contribute in different ways to each other, that'll be my
Then it
next.
becomes like chamber music rather than just me up there by myself.
Yeah, which is cool. Like that's what I'm saying. Like this could be a solo piece, and that's another thing. Like if you were asking percussionists to do this piece, like what are the things that you write it down? You know what I mean? Like who is this for? Going back to that, like how can I, Graham, if I wanted to do it, how can I perform this piece? What kind of information do I need?
Yeah, that would be a big project in itself.
I'm getting kicked out, but it's all good. I'm gonna move. But yeah, those are the things that I think it'll be really new founding. If I were you, like just figuring it out, what would be the something that's gonna give another life to it.
I'm
but
curious.
I don't know. Yeah, what are you curious?
I was like, when you like travel and perform, you do a lot of like work at like festivals and going to schools to give like master classes and concerts and that sort of thing. But just what do you like? I know you and John Greeny just played Timber in Portland, right? And like that sort of thing. And like where do you get audiences, or like how do you think about the audience when it's just like a public event like that?
In terms of like actual physical placement of audience or staging?
No, just like who you're playing for, how you get audience members to attend.
Yeah. That's a really good question, right? Like, I actually am very interested in that too. Like, I've been thinking more about that.
We've got a relocation issue, but
Did I lose you?
There we go. Hey.
Are you there?
Yep.
Oh,
No,
cool,
yeah.
cool. Oh, keep going. No, thinking about, you know, who, in terms of the art form, like I've been always been invited to different places as a guest artist, and I play, I get my paycheck, and then I leave, right? But recently I've been thinking like creating more spaces for myself and my friends, and I get to decide the repertoire, right? Like all those things that I've been wanting to have more ownership of, right? That comes with a price. That comes with more responsibility and more work, different kinds of work than just practicing and showing up. So this particular one, the Timber in Portland, was that group of, there was a chamber music series there already implanted, you know, and then I just came in and performed Timber. And they do many different kinds of music. It's not always new music, but it happened to be this time, it was just a regular audience member who bought the tickets, and they heard pieces of was getting hit in different ways for an hour, right? Even like I was practicing learning the timbre by Michael Gordon. For those of you who don't know, it's just an hour-long piece of music. On we all 6 of us have one plank of, you know, wood, and it's beautiful. It's actually like very much of experiment kind of process music, right? Like it's not like you're not get wowed by like 5 minutes of virtuosic. Like it's actually different kinds of virtuosic. But yeah, so I was locked out in that the audience member were built into that. But even then, that was a little tricky. Like they had no idea what we're gonna do when we showed up. You know, like we prepped them, they gave us the audience talk, but it was just, you know, tough to go through the hour of that music. But going back to your original question, like who's gonna be the audience? I would just actually going back to your like sort of where you are in terms of like, you know, in school being safe, I would probably create myself, even I am oftentimes I create a lot of opportunity for myself with my friends, the music that I want to play, right? And half of times, more than half of times, I will get invited to play pieces that they chose or they have a program they already built in. But I think I found that it's different kinds of rewarding when I create some opportunity for myself, and it may not be well paid, it may not be you know, the what you're looking for in terms of making it work. Like you're gonna do a lot of emails, administrative work that you probably didn't go to school for, you know. But I think if you're start doing it at school, like your teachers, your professors sort of help you along with that. Like, oh, this place might be cool. And if you fail, maybe the outcome, the result is not as bad as you trying to do it in a much higher professional level, right? Like, so I will encourage you, even at school, like finding like before you can ask the Dallas Contemporary Museum, right? Like maybe you get a school grant and see if you can do it in on campus level. You know, that's maybe School of Music or outside of School of Music, and see if you three of you can get a really good recording of video recording of this video and audio, and then you have something to show and go to the museum curator like, oh, we have this cool thing, right?
Yeah, I see.
I don't know, but yeah, like I will actually, the second thing, going back to your question, I will give a lot more credit for a regular audience member to handle something like this too. I always wonder, you know, when we do a lot of new music, like, oh, this is so out of their comfort level. They've just heard Brahms trio, and I'm gonna come in and do this. And I think the regular audience member, like the concert goer or the museum goer will probably are ready for something like this. I am excited more like this, right? So even though it's scary, even though it's sort of the going to the next level for everybody, I think you can start giving more credit for regular people, not just the basic audience. They will love it, of course they will love it, but I probably, that's what I found, like doing a lot of concerts for regular audience member, something that's probably really hard to digest, hard to sit in for. They all love it, and to be honest, some of them fall asleep and they still love it. And they got a good nap. No, but like that's something that we learn. Like even people, symphony goers, they pay so much money. Sometimes they fall asleep, but sometimes I doze off, and that doesn't mean I hated it. Maybe I was really tired. With that person had really long day, but they still experience something. So I would not take it. The music, that contemporary music that we do, I'm not trying to please everybody either, right? Like our audience member is going to be probably targeted, very small number of people who appreciate this or understand this or support this. But I think that more I learn, more I do this, like people are ready for this. Actually, there are a lot more people who appreciate than I thought. So
yeah,
you can be,
well, that's a good
you
thought.
can have courage. Yeah, like I always thought my mom, well, my parents would never appreciate this, but in my head, like they were like sort of the targeted regular, but they are sort of the very conservative, like concert goers, and or museum goers. So that I learned that maybe they're not the right level for me to think. They're much more wild people, young. If you're trying to have young people who are excited about coming to concert, like, yeah, we need music like this to be performed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, I mean, for yourself,
that.
right? Like you.
I would
Yeah,
go see this.
so
I
I
guess
think
there's got to be somebody else that would
Yeah.
like to see it.
yeah, like your friends, right? Like my friends would like to see it. Yes, like at the same time, like knowing that we don't do like we want to sell the ticket, but at the same time, like people who come to the concert, 10 people, like, yeah, probably 2 or 3 people love it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. We're not doing this. This is not a celebrity, like popular contest. We're in the wrong business if you're trying to do that. But so there are people who, 2 or 3 people who probably have a very strong opposite reaction. Like maybe they don't appreciate it, don't see it, and that is probably okay. I'm okay with that. I'm ready for them to not like it. And there are some people who are in the middle, right? And then there are 2 or 3 people who are gonna be like supporting this and carry this on. And that's sort of how it is with not just the new music, the percussion and just arts, right?
Yeah, that always happens. I mean, that even happens at the symphony and stuff like that. If people they're only there for like, high class social hour or whatever, but don't actually care about the music, and then other people that really love it.
Exactly. So I think we can kind of, have to find our own audiences sometimes, build audiences and find the people who appreciate this as much as you do, care for it. And if it's a small, that's okay. They will bring other people who care about it. I'd rather have that than 100 people at the first concert and everybody is kind of like, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I'd rather have like 5 really enthusiastic, like, friends who are like supporting this, and they'll bring like, 2 more friends each, right? Like, and that's how it goes. So yeah, I think a school, like it kind of gives you that platform that gives you like umbrella sort of from real world, but at the same time you can kind of step into it and see like, okay, I want to do this. There will be like, school like University of North Texas. Yeah, it's a big school, like very much of, many different kinds of things going on. So I would be, surprised they already have grants for grad students to do something this adventurous things project and supporting this. So you just have to ask, right? You just have to
Yeah.
ask the right people for it. And yeah, I think, you know, this is probably is right time for you to do your own project. This is your own, like three of you. No one else has that, you know. So how do you carry this on from student, you know, school, class, you know, final project into something more than that?
Yeah. Well, I hope we'll make it happen.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, let me know if you have other questions after this. You have my, you know, we took a photo together in front of, where was that, Bucky's?
Bucky's.
Yeah.
You've cut your hair since then, though.
Yeah.
We don't match anymore.
I know. It's gonna be a few years until we can, or you can cut yours. But yeah, I think Texas is like, you know, a lot of, I found that they support arts, right? Like there are a lot of, especially in Dallas, like they're not that far away. You just have to find the right place, right people to support that. So, and school is the very first safe place to do something crazy like this, and they will support it, you know.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
I don't know. I feel like that gave me a lot to think about.
What else?
And like,
yeah, what else was on the concert? What else you doing? What you know, on your program?
for this like project, this class.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was just like video and audio that people composed and like the digital artists created with no live performance. There was some more theatrices that sort of use like all the electronic equipment and that sort of media in more like theater-based works of like storytelling and dialogue and that sort of thing. And then there was other composition sort of things like this, like my part of it, where it was a live performer. There was a live pianist group that did like, you know, prepared piano, extended technique, that sort of thing. And there was a couple. What was interesting about it actually was we had like 5 or 6 of these groups, and then we had to figure out a way to transition between them because we all kind of worked independent and tried to like throw together the final project. And so that led to a lot of just like really quick 1 minute long things that were more like actions, or like we did some Pauline Oliveros like sonic meditation deep listenings where people started like embodying sounds and stuff in the audience, like while we like moved the equipment on stage and off stage and that sort of thing. But it was funny because it felt very kind of like just haphazard. We got to create a transition to flow through all this, but when everyone was like involved and like participating in like the listening and the actual experience of it, of like people came in with like no preconceived notions or that sort of thing, and then it was cool. But if you came in like, oh, this is gonna have a like a plot and, you know, a narrative, then it would have just like fallen flat. but no, it was an awesome project.
Yeah, sounds like it.
It was an open-ended class I've been a part of.
Did you like the two of, Tim just said we have, cool, we'll wrap it up. But did you like all the people who you work with?
Yeah,
you know, the sound designer.
The people in that class were fantastic, and it was
great.
Everyone, it was interesting because, you know, so often like in like the College of Music and things, you're working like in an ensemble or situation where everyone like has their own skill, which is basically playing your instrument that you bring and like try to do that really well with other people in the orchestra or chamber music or whatever project. But then this sort of experience kind of forced me to be like, oh, what skills do I have other than just like, you know, playing an instrument well? Because it was kind of like when I was like, I have a bass drum and a bowl of water that we want to work on, and then it was like I had to think about how many different sounds I could get out of it, and sometimes I would do something. There was a couple of times where I was bowing a brush like pressed into the bass drum, and, you know, I was just like experimenting with different sounds that I could come up with. And then especially the people from like the visual arts college, they would be like, "Oh man, that's crazy. That's like such a fantastic sound." And in my head, I was like, "This is like the ugliest sound I've made on a concert, like in school." But it was just like about the different context and the different like branching out of skill sets that everyone had to do.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. Like try to take advantage of that, like that camaraderie and knowing people. And it seems like it doesn't have to be all these 3 people that you work with, right? Like you can reach out to people in the class. So
Yeah,
I will
absolutely.
probably do the more project you can at school, because it's, let me tell you, outside of school it gets really difficult. So
that's what I'm worried about too. Figuring out how to keep this going. But when we come on tour, I'll come through Vanderbilt. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
No water though. No
Thanks
water.
so much.
Great job, Graham.
Thank you.
Nice one. All righty. So we move to our final artist of the day. Remy, how you doing? You got a little bit of low signal there, buddy. Are you there?
Yes, hello. Sorry.
Cool. That's okay. So, Remy, the floor's yours.
Oh, great. So I'm going to be presenting Mirage. The performance was from my second master's recital, which I sort of created the program between the two. It's interesting because your discussion with Graham kind of connects to this a lot. I sort of planned it to sort of be a progression from accessible to inaccessible percussion music, sort of starting with music that I personally thought that, like you said, can my parents listen to this and enjoy it and not have to ask me questions while on the car ride home? Hey, I didn't get that one, which I'm sure we all got a bunch. And I thought the first program was a lot of accessible things through the whole thing, even with non-pitched instruments. I played a composed drum set solo. So things that I thought everyone was to do. And then the second program was more of a progression of starting with more accessible contemporary works and then moving into more heavily contemporary works. And this was the second to last piece on the program. So this was sort of more of what I chose more into the contemporary side. And then after this, I performed a piece for solo glockenspiel called Noom by Frederick Anderson, which was 18 minutes long. That was the weirdest one. But this one just sort of was just a step below that. So when I was thinking about it, because I planned out the program more in depth than I had thought about any other ones, I sort of thought about how is that going to affect my interpretation of the piece. And should I approach pieces, if I approach a piece in the way I would approach a more tonal piece or a more, I guess, Western art music composed style of piece, would that give me the effect that I want? Or if I took a more avant-garde, more contemporary approach to it, I felt that would more suit my, like the sort of theme and the idea I was going for. And the more I'm in the moment, I thought it worked out well. And then as I've listened back to it, I'm just not sure if I've gone too far, if that's even a possibility. So I was just, looking for any thoughts and any, ideas.
Cool. Yeah, let's listen to it together.
Good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of my probably favorite marimba pieces, as well. So I love hearing this when other people play as well. Yeah, Remy, I hear you about your idea about programming, but I think it's good that you sort of had that planning and have your own idea of how uh, the recital should be. But at the same time, I think when you're thinking about the music, maybe you shouldn't be thinking about, you programmed it. I think your job is done, right? Like,
Okay.
so maybe um, instead of thinking about how this will fit in, you already done that, so when you're performing the piece, I think I will probably, if I were you, like thinking more about like how can you deliver this piece of music as best as you can, as the intent, like the sort of the having the right intention of the composer. And
Sure.
I think if you do that, then it will naturally serve your purpose of programming.
Sure.
Does it
Definitely.
make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worry about that too, right? Like you want people to sort of have a good experience and have your thought about the programming, but yeah, in terms of actual performance things, I think that part is done. So like when you're performing it, like let's do best as you can do to deliver this piece of music.
Sure.
So yeah, what did you do it differently? I guess that's, or like
Well,
whole time
I
listening
guess
to, I'm just like,
I guess maybe I just didn't explain myself well enough. I didn't. That isn't to say I never didn't try to convey the piece as the composer intended. I researched I read articles with about the piece, his process, how each section is based on different movements, how the last section is based on kabuki theater, and the various motions of all of it. I don't mean to imply that I just wung it and went out and played it however I felt like.
Yeah.
It was just, I guess, my thought of if there was ever a decision I had to make on, I guess, smaller items or throughout the piece, like all the different grace notes, how would I approach them in the way you'd approach a grace note if I played something from Bach, or would I approach it in a different way? I guess not in the grander scale. I tried to convey the piece as it's meant to be conveyed, I guess is what I mean.
Yeah. No, it came out in that way. Like I that's why I was confused. Like I thought you did so well. I didn't hear anything so out of ordinary, or
Yeah,
So
I didn't explain myself well enough then.
No, it's great. Like but my question is, like, when we are thinking about programming versus performing one, like a lot of times for me, when I show up to play concerts, half of my times, like, programs are done by somebody else, the artistic director, right? Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I think your artistic director job is being finished by putting this program together, right? So that's what I was saying. So when you're showing up to play your pieces, like, you just are there for the piece as an artist, as a performer. But going back to those ideas of grace notes, yeah, I thought, I agree with a lot of things that's in the piece, in terms of decision making, like the beginning, like right, like having that much drama, right? Like there's so much drama. Like like for me, this piece, the beginning is just like shocking. No matter what it is, like, it's just like you can prepare your audience into that, but like it's just like, huh? And then you finish with right? Like it's there is everything. There isn't one way to do the grace notes here. Right? Like even the first line of the piece, first phrasing, there are grace notes, two grace notes part, and then it sort of ends with rhythm. So that's kind of like the rhythm ends with kind of like gesture, like, right? Or slow grace notes. So yeah, I think you kind of need to use everything, right? Like it's the first gesture would be probably not like playing J.S. Bach-ish gesture or grace notes, but at the same time, like your last rhythm, da, da, dee, dee. Like I think he maybe want you to do that, right? Like it actually has that element to that, So yeah, I thought you did that really nicely. For me, one thing that I will sort of give you feedback on, if you're looking at the first part, like there are 4 movements of this, right? Like 4 small, like a miniature works. Yeah, I think for me, like the most shocking way, like besides the first opening, is this like a liberato section. Right? Like body, right? Like the melody, right? Like, wow, I didn't expect that. Like where you start the beginning to go there. Right? Like I think that's why, like, this piece of music has so much the depth. It brings so much different kinds of emotion and sound and the brightness to warmth. Like it's got everything. So like for me, in that section, in that moment, the expression moment, yeah, it's kind of like playing the nice choral of, So I think that is for me more shocking, that we go from there to totally opposite section of the music, right? Like, so yeah, I think in that moment, I think you can actually give, even when we go to mezzo forte in this section, the choral section, because you got two-tone mallets here,
Yeah.
right? Maybe thinking about not breaking into that brightness yet.
Okay. Yeah.
You probably were playing pretty good mezzo forte, mezzo piano with a, just regular mallet, but because of what you got in your hands, I think we need to be careful not to break that into the core.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Like, even it's like less than mezzo forte, less than mezzo piano, I'd rather create something like special for that section. And then going back to bum bum, bum, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're gonna go back there. But in that moment, the sort of the B section of this first miniature movement, it has to be captured like sort of different quality,
Yeah.
different scenery, like as if you're in a different bubble of life.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that if you can do more of those throughout in different movements, right? So let's find that. So the second one, like ba-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. For me, gosh, like when I first learned it, like, where are we? Like, there is somewhat like a meter,
Yeah.
like the first section starts with like somewhat crazy, like, he's as specific as like gives you time that 3, like it's sort of, it is measured in a way, but the second movement starts with very much of like sort of Western classical music of like, wow, there's groove.
Yeah.
Ba-da-da. Da-da-da. So for me, as a listener, I get such a comfort in with that music. We relate to that. Like, as you said, like this is your first half of concert, right? Like,
Sure.
ooh, comfortable. Like there is a meter. It's not just like hanging me there without the meter. So I will hang on to the, even though there are different badam, 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 like just staying in the meter as much as possible when you do have that.
Okay.
Cool. We're back. So yeah, the second part of this piece, I will make sure whenever it comes back to that, I will just hold on to that,
Sure.
and it keeps fighting. Ja 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 ja, ba-da-da, ji ja ja, ba-da-da-da-da-da, ji ja 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 ja. Even though it's going forward, right? Even though it's like each time it gets longer, each time it gets developed. I think every time we have those moments, try to capture that. And then the end of this second part, like we go back to that nice choral.
Yep.
Right? So it just loops around to that. So just a little bit of that comfort again, like, oh, I don't know, this harmony. It's a lot of cluster, a lot of dissonant harmonies, but still like way you're presenting it. Maybe I'm familiar with chant or choral section.
Yeah, there's something familiar for the audience.
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to do with this lento section. And then the third part, I think for me, it's just sort of really playful, right? But I will be careful where you're going, where you're heading.
Sure.
So that section, like, don't get so fast that we get like chopped up into 3 different tempos. I want to make sure, even though you're not as fast at the first section, trying to like, you play really nicely up to tempo. I don't think I can do that. But instead of having like 3 different tempo, just making sure that we get into right?
Sure.
Like nicely looping into that, so that we don't suddenly slow down or fast and slow down and fast.
Yeah, does
it make sense?
Yeah, don't, because it's going from 3 groups of 3 to not groups of 3, and don't show as jarring a change, I guess. Yeah.
Right, but it's like, so yeah, he's doing the metric modulation for you, right?
Yeah.
So it should be, in terms of the subdivision wise, it stays the same.
Sure.
But most of the time we get so excited. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like I get so excited, and then my hands cannot do right?
Yeah.
Like you can. So knowing what the tempo is, and even though you don't go as fast as you can get to, like it sort of makes it nice one section rather than chop it up into different sections.
Sure, that makes sense.
That's my goal for the third section. And then the last section, oh wow, like you played it with such a conviction, and at the end, like yeah, like once again, I don't think I played that as fast when I even was younger playing that. So nicely done.
Thank you.
You know, you have that little weapon, you know. So I think that for me, it's like how, like, so what are you trying to do here? What is trying to do here? What is the composer trying to do here? For me, it's that process music.
Sure.
He's like just like ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, that starts with a roll. Ba, ba, get down to 16 notes. Trying to get there. Like we start here, point A, and then we're trying to get to point B. And we go through different process, breaking like sort of into that section, right? So each one of them, I sort of think as it's like part of being something from that to going to there. Does it make sense? I think you're doing so well with all the dynamics, all the each one of them, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, da-dum, ba-dum. But how does it relate to the one that came before, and how does it relate to the one that you're about to play next, right?
Sure.
Actually, very much related. It's almost like cell breaking into something and morphing into something else. So I'm almost like thinking about, this is just process music. So yeah, like he kind of goes through different techniques, different ways to do the things to get us to do the 16 notes. But at the same time, like like just maybe he's experimenting da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, da-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum, da-dum, ba-dum. Like you can actually help the process so that it's connected way more.
Sure.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think you're doing each one of them. So like, I don't think if I'm looking at each one of them, you are doing it so correctly. But able to sort of bring the intention of the composer going from that roll to the 16 notes.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's not enough to just execute what's on the page.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have to do extra, like go way out of your way to deliver, like to understand. For people who are sitting there, has no idea how the marimba thing that works. It doesn't really matter what it is, right? But rhythm is sort of breaking it up. Ja 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 ja, ta 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 ta, ti ta ta ta, ti ta 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 ta. Like so, it's just the process get to that climax.
Sure. Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that is that. Like so, you are doing like I think that in this piece, there is no one way to do it, because we can actually look at this kind of score. There's so much in the score from the composer, which I love, because every time I hear somebody else playing, Remy, your performance, I actually learn something new, discover something new to do it. Next time I play.
Definitely.
And I think that different is good, but one thing that we can all do better is with our own ways to interpret is like, what is this person trying to say with all this guidance? Like there's so much dynamics, so much articulation, so much of slurs, so much of tempo marking, and words like expression, meno, rapino, like all those things. I think we need to really internalize.
Sure.
Cantabile, like he wants you to sing in the middle of it. Like, no, like I cannot sing. This seems like crazy for me to sing. But try your best to play that as linear as possible, right? Like, so even in Mirage, as crazy, as dissonant as and technically difficult piece, there are moments I think emotionally you can connect with audience.
Sure. So I guess that kind of leads me to a question. So I assume it depends on the piece, obviously, to some degree. But when you're approaching, I guess, avant-garde works, or works like Mirage, do you look at it from sort of like a death of the author standpoint, sort of like it's more about the performer's intent than the composer's intent, I guess? Or is it more about I want to try to convey as much about the composer as I can? Or the composer's intention?
That's a good question, right? Like when is like sort of okay for us to add ourselves into that, right? Like for me, each piece is different. Like each piece of music sort of gives you different amount of room to the performers to sort of add themselves into it. But for me, like the first thing is that as you said, like you do research, understanding where this person, the composer, creator, is coming from, right? Like what kind of background does he or she or they have, right? Like, and just trying to put myself into their position. Is this person a marimba player? Stay with that. Or non-marimba player? Where in the world this person come from? That a lot to do with it. Like what kind of musical training does this person have? Oh, they have a parents who are jazz musician. Of course they grew up listening to jazz. That was sort of, so I do a lot of that kind of stuff because nowadays, Remy, you're right. Like we play many different kinds of style of music, from Ivan Trevino, who I love, to Mirage, to Calm Variations, to Velocities. Like there are very different kinds of musical background. So our job is actually harder than when it was like a Baroque Bach's time. Like people used to have understanding of what they're hearing. Bach use triplets, and they'll be like, what? Or he will use certain intervals. Like he cannot do that. Like they will throw tomatoes, right? So like we don't have that, right? People don't go into concert thinking we're gonna hear one kind of music. So that means as a performer, like our job is tricky because the creators, they come from all over the place. Like it is okay to create music sounding like a Bach or Radiohead, or sounding like has a little bit of influence of jazz, or this is marimba player who also likes tango, like Piazzolla, like whatever that is, so able to sort of like create those dots, to connect those dots, and but at the same time referring to the score.
So you think, so I guess just so I can understand, your thought is because there's such a variety of music that exists, the need to show the composer's intent is even more because it's so different, because there's so many different styles. So to show their intent is more crucial rather than less crucial. That makes sense.
Yeah, and also like like my job is as a performer, is a deliver person. Right? Like a long time ago, it was just one person who create and perform. But nowadays we have a composer who writes music, not always, a lot of times, and then me as a performer performing it in front of people. So that it creates a triangle, right? So my job here is to do best I can to understand the intention of the composer and adding the twist of my own version on top of that when it's ready. But I will not sort of change things just because I want to, or you know what I mean?
That definitely.
Right.
I guess, that I would never go that far to change like any note because I felt like it or whatever, because who am I? But I guess I was thinking about like how far can you go?
Depends on the style of music. Like Alejandro Viñao, like the time is so crucial. The variations are created based on the time and the rhythm. So it is really important to understand the click track that he created. But at the same time, my job is to make sure his musical intention, which is creating tension release, and surprises are there. By doing that, I do touch some of that. I do stretch some of that, you know, and he loves that when it's appropriate.
Sure.
But I do respect what he creates first, and
Sure.
then just 1 or 2 moments. I think it needs a little bit more time than I do it, you know.
Okay.
I think, but it comes from the respect of that creator and love and trying to showcase that best rather than let me put my, you know, my version, you know. And I
Sure.
think that if you stay with a piece and finding what you love about Remy, like personally, what do you connect with this piece? It's going to be different than you or me or anybody else. And I
Sure.
think that is very personal, you know.
Definitely.
Cool. I think Tim is
Yeah, sorry.
stop talking.
Yeah. Sorry. All right, great job, Remy.
Thank you.
Very impressive. Okay, so I didn't know if you got maybe just a few minutes just to answer any parting questions, and then we'll let you go if that's all right.
Yes.
Graham, are you there, buddy, or not? I don't know if Graham's there, but anyway, yeah. Has anyone got any sort of final questions that they'd like to ask? Or if not, we can knock it on the head.
Yeah.
Do you I have one question, I guess.
Go on then, Graham.
What are your some like upcoming projects or anything that you're working on?
Yeah, that's a good question because I'm really enjoying the summer at the moment, you know. I'm in sort of approaching at the end of summer travels, and this is my last trip. I just arrived, and you can tell I've been moving around because trying to check in a hotel that did not let me check in early. But I'm in Swanee, Tennessee, at the Swanee Music Festival for a couple of days, and then I'm going to take a break. Well, go back home to sort of prepare the new repertoire for the year. So I'm working on reflections on nature of water, including that to my repertoire for the upcoming season, and few commissioning project coming up. Working with a composer like Christopher Theophanidis, writing us 2 pianos and 2 percussion pieces that we are doing, and another exciting project like I'm taking Vanderbilt students to Korea this winter to perform with me. So that'll be fun if we can make that happen, hopefully. Yeah. So those are the things that's in my mind in the summer project, just like taking a break from traveling and performing and just practicing, learning pieces, just like you are all doing, right? Practicing. I protect that my own time with instruments, you know. When we were at school, like practicing, but like try to really worship and protect your time, whether practicing isn't just like moving your hands. It can be like a gram, like creating the next opportunity or working with your collaborator next project, having meetings, right? But like try to like have those time for yourself and protecting those moments for yourself. Yeah. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, thank you so much, Jihye, for your time. I really appreciate it, especially as you're on your travels. It's really kind of you to step in and help the guys out. So on behalf of everyone here at the WPG, thank you so much. You can tune in, those watching at home, you can tune in tomorrow, same time, same place. We've got Kai Strobel tomorrow. And it's my birthday tomorrow.
Yay!
So
yeah. So yeah, I will be streaming on my birthday. So looking forward to that. Until